marine engineering, and now we focus solely on drones within a couple of verticals, one of which is the public safety and defence world. So this is what we're going to look to cover today. So we're going to look at some search and rescue applications based around mostly the hardware and software side of what's available currently. So I know some of you might well be already operating drones to a certain extent. So this will help those of you that are look at ways you can expand what you already do. And those of you that aren't, look at a way that you can get into using drones. Can I just check on the chat again that everyone can hear me okay? If anyone can't hear me, well, if anyone can hear me, please comment into the questions or the chat. If you can't, we'll look to get that sorted. Brilliant, looks like the audio is working okay, so we'll carry on. So what we're going to run through is, that, as I said, the hardware and software side of things, and then how COPTRZ can support as well. So moving on to what we've done, as I said, we began in the drone industry in 2016. We work with a range of the best drone and software suppliers in the UK. DJI obviously is the one that everyone's heard of and probably the main drone manufacturer. And then you've also got Parrot, who we work with more in the public safety world and defence. FLIR are the thermal camera manufacturers. Flyability create the Helios 2, which is the internal inspection and survey drone. And we also work with Pix4D, the mapping software company. So we now supply some of the largest organisations in the UK. And that involves everything from training and hardware all the way through to software and to an extent consultancy as well. So some of the companies that we've worked with specifically within the public safety and inspection world are around 25 police and fire services across the UK, probably just over that now. We've done work with the Ministry of Defence on off-the-shelf drone and counter-drone solutions. Defence Forces Ireland, over in Ireland as well, with similar things. We have worked with a handful of individual mountain rescue and search and rescue teams as well. Alongside that, we do work with companies such as Thames Water and Severn Trent Water on drone solutions for them, and large engineering and survey companies like Balfour Beatty, Veolia, etc. Okay. So if you look at traditional methods for search and rescue, I'm sure most of you are more than aware of what these are, so we're not going to go into too much detail on this. But some of the downsides of that might be that you can only cover smaller areas depending on what equipment you have available. Obviously, you can cover much greater areas if you use something like a helicopter or any other traditional manned aircraft option. But as we all know, they can be very costly, and especially in today's day and age, aren't always available at the time that you need them, because the traditional methods can be limited in terms of how many there are around the whole country. If you're relying purely on manpower, you need a far greater amount of manpower for a traditional method. You can only cover a much smaller area of ground. And again, that can become very expensive very quickly in terms of overtime for people, and also very trying on volunteers if you're looking at this from a volunteer search and rescue perspective. So often these can be costly and ineffective. One of the benefits potentially would be that they're more thorough, as some might say, but there are certainly advantages and disadvantages to some of the traditional methods. So if you look at what drones can do, one of the main benefits is that you can cover large areas in very short periods of time, obviously depending on the equipment that you use. That in turn is going to minimize the officers or volunteers that are used within a search and rescue sort of operation. You've also got the fact that you can add in thermal cameras very easily for night searching. That's not something you could do with anything other than, for example, a helicopter if you weren't using drones. So it gives you the opportunity of using something that's minimal cost to be able to carry on looking at night in a much more efficient way. You've also got the benefit of the fact that there's safety bonuses as well. So although the risk with a drone, obviously the very small risk, because there might be a failure with the drone which might drop out the sky, if you're searching in a rural area I'd argue that there's a much greater risk of you firstly taking longer to find the person or people that are missing, which puts more of a risk on their life, but also there's more risk to your personnel being out there in the field, isolated, than there is with a drone. We'd always much rather a drone was crashed or damaged than a person be put in any sort of threatening position. One of the perceived negatives could potentially be that it's an overt search effort. So drones obviously have a little bit of negative press at the moment, which is par for the course with any new technology. But sometimes members of the public aren't too receptive to drones being used in operations. That's one of the few negatives you might find with using drones for this kind of operation. So to look on the training side, what you want to look at is stuff like, is the PFCO qualification from the CAA necessary for your organisation? If you are operating as a commercial entity, this is something you need to consider. As volunteers, you may well not need to have this permission in place. For police and fire services, you do at least currently need to have the PFCO or equivalent in place for your operations, as they do qualify as commercial. One thing you want to consider if you're not doing the PFCO is what further flight training you might need. So if you aren't getting the qualification, that doesn't mean that you won't need the skills that come with it. So we'd always recommend doing flight coaching around new platforms that you purchase, first-time platforms, and specific operational training as well. You've also got to think about, if you're using thermal cameras, if you can understand how to interpret thermal data and how to set the cameras up properly. If the cameras aren't set up properly, then you're not going to be able to interpret what you see on the screen, whether that's just an area that's heated up in the sun, whether it's an animal or person, whatever else it might be. A lot simpler in what you do, because you're looking for one specific sort of patch of heat in a large area, than say an inspection that's looking for something to be a certain amount of degrees in machinery, but still something you need to understand. And also how to maintain and care your equipment. You need to know whether you might need some training on how to, for example, store batteries correctly, transport equipment correctly, clean it and maintain it after operations to make sure it doesn't have a failure in later life. So there's a lot of training things to consider. You can start right at the top with the PFCO. If that's not necessary, you can work your way down and make sure you've got something that's ticking those boxes. So looking at the equipment side, what's first in terms of basic systems? There's two options that we tend to recommend and that we supply, which are the Mavic from DJI and the Anafi drone from Parrot. Both of these are small, handheld, portable drones. You can take them effectively out of a pocket or a small bag and have them up in the air within 30 to 45 seconds. Both of these now have a thermal option. It's a relatively small sensor, but it certainly does the job for search and rescue. The benefits for these are the short setup time. The flight time is very good because they're small, so they're light. Transportation, so you can chuck them in the back of any car. You can carry them around with you anywhere in the field and hardly notice them. And also the fact that they are relatively cheap in terms of drones. So you can get set up with a thermal camera on a drone for £3,000–4,000. That's something you couldn't do maybe a year ago. It costs you a lot more to get a thermal camera in the air. So for search and rescue, yes, the sensor quality might not be good enough for other applications. It might not even, by your standards, be good enough for some search and rescue missions. But the chances of getting a thermal camera in the air for a couple of £1,000, it's not something you're going to get from any other system apart from ones in this sort of, as we call it, a basic kind of entry-level class. The good thing with these as well is they're really easy to use. So if you've never used drones before, with both of these systems, you can effectively learn yourself to an extent, and then maybe get some flight coaching around some specifics and work on some weak points, and then you're up and running. Whether that is, again, doing your PFCO or just coaching, it is entirely up to how your organization works. So then you've got looking at if you need to upgrade that system. So say you've started with something smaller like a Mavic or a Parrot, or say you have the funds available immediately to go for a larger system, and you have some experience with drones either within your private world or from an existing occupation. What you want to do is look at the limitations of the smaller introductory system that you're using. So I've listed some of the key ones there that are given to us by customers. Weather is always given as a limitation by the smaller, what you'd maybe call consumer level drones that some people use for search and rescue. Can your drone fly in rain? Can it fly in strong winds? Can you put it up in freezing temperatures? Can you put it up in very hot temperatures? Will the batteries run when it's 35 degrees, which yes, probably only happens 2 or 3 times a year in this country. But it's something to bear in mind. And also, if you're up the side of a very steep hill and it's winter, it might be below freezing. Will your batteries run? Will they need to be warmed in a car before you can operate? All limitations that fall within a smaller system, as well as the obvious one of the camera sensor quality as well as the versatility. So can you attach different sensors and cameras to that smaller drone? In most cases, no, you can't. And that's when you'll start to look for something larger as an upgrade. There are downsides in terms of upgrading to a larger system. Portability and ease of carry is certainly one. So if you've got a much larger drone, you're not going to be able to lug that through a field quite as easily. Might not fit in a smaller vehicle. You might need to use a 4x4 or an estate for a very large system. The setup time as well can be a limitation, as well as the cost of the equipment. So as an example around this, we ran a trial with the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, which is the thermal version of the drone you saw on the previous slide, and the Matrice 210 drone, which is actually on this slide here. What we did is we had both of these in a box, boxed up like they were in the back of a vehicle. We had 2 pilots who had to run about 25 meters to their takeoff points, relative takeoff points, set up the drone and put them in the air. We then had a volunteer hidden in some woods nearby who was lying down under some bushes, so you couldn't really spot them visually from the air. And we had both the pilots fly a grid to try and find the person. They knew they were within, I'd say around a sort of 250 to 300 meter square area. So not a huge area, but obviously for the purposes of a trial, we want to keep it relatively short. The Mavic drone was in the air within about 55 seconds, just under a minute. They were scanning within a minute and 20 seconds. The Matrice 210 drone took about 4 minutes to be fully set up and be in the air and scanning. So just over twice the amount of time, maybe near 3 times the amount of time to be in the air and operating because of the longer setup. However, the Matrice 210 drone did find the volunteer first because the thermal camera is much higher quality. The drone simply flew up to a higher altitude, scanned the area in a tenth of the time, and picked up the person immediately, zoomed in with its high-powered zoom camera and identified them straight away. The Mavic found them shortly after, but it just goes to show that with the larger platforms, there are some drawbacks, but more often than not, they are covered by the benefits of these larger systems. So something you've got to consider as well with stuff like this is the price of the larger systems. That's going to be a main sticking point in terms of upgrading. Something like the Matrice 210, I've put there, it's cheap relatively within the realms of sort of drone technology. It is fairly cheap. It's easy to use if you're used to using DJI technology, and it's very widely used within the industry. There's loads of information out there about the Matrice 210. You can find videos of it being used. I'm sure you'll know colleagues or industry professionals that have used it, or they can give you their own feedback on it. It's kind of the benchmark with which other drones of that more industrial, professional class are judged against. You've got an IP43 rating, and it's reliable in strong winds, so you can fly it in relatively poor weather. You can put it up when there's some light rain, as long as you look after the equipment afterwards, and fairly strong winds as well. There is a step up from that which we have developed for military use, and that's a joint venture between ourselves, COPTRZ, and a company called Ace Corp in Holland. So we've taken a platform that was built for effectively flying in any conditions imaginable, and we developed it to hold a very high-powered zoom and very high-powered thermal camera, and we have a civilian version of this on the way very shortly. So that is going to be top end in terms of cost, but you'll be able to fly that in pretty much any conditions you will find in the UK, and be able to scan from very high altitude to pick out targets. It has object tracking ability as well, so you can lock onto an individual that might be lost and keep a track of them while the drone flies for its full 40 minutes flight time. So if you're an organization that's been using drones for a few, maybe 18 months to 2 years, you've proved the concept works very well, this will be the step up effectively from you. I think we've got some footage of a zoom lens. Now, I believe this is the Matrice 210. The Zoe zoom lens will work in a very similar way, but just be able to zoom in much further. And this is just an event one of my colleagues went to in Lincolnshire about a month ago. So all he's done there is put the drone up, fly away, and he's going to zoom in on one of these tents so you can see how the zoom system works. So that would be the 30 times optical zoom. And then there's a slight bit of digital zoom there at the end to carry on further. But as you can see, in terms of if you scan with a thermal, pick up what might be a target, you can switch to that camera while you're in the air, zoom in and see if someone's in a state of distress or what conditions they might be in. So a quick mention for internal units, just very quickly, we also have the Elios 2 and Loki 2 units, both of which are developed for more inspection and sometimes emergency services use worldwide. But they can very easily be converted and used for urban search and rescue, cave rescue, internal search in pretty much any environment. Very tough, very rugged systems, very niche uses, but I'd encourage anyone who does use drones or traditional methods for those things and thinks they can use drones to get in touch, because it might be that something like this could fit in well with what you're looking to do, more so than a standard external drone. So just a quick look at the software side of things now. Pix4D is a partner we've had for several years, and they've become sort of the industry standard for mapping software. Up until now, the way the mapping software has been used is you scan with a drone using an application to create waypoints and grid paths. You'll take that data, analyze it, and then within a few hours or a few days, you'll have a full map ready to be used by a client to look at a building site, for example, or something like that. With Pix4D React, now you can create maps in minutes. So whether you're searching an area for an individual and you want to scan it beforehand so that you can give distances that are going to have to be covered, you can start to plot where you're going to search first, where areas of hazards might be. You can now do that in under 10 minutes, create a 2D map which can be instantly exported to PDF. And within that PDF, it can obviously be shared via email to an entire team instantly. You can mark features, you can mark distances, all that kind of stuff within the application. And this works with DJI, with Parrot, and with all the major drone brands. So it can integrate into drones you already have. This is just a quick video on the launch of Pix4D React. It's only about a minute long, so we'll just watch that quickly.
Natural disasters, man-made conflicts, and crises are increasing in both volume and complexity, impacting populations and infrastructure around the world. Emergency teams on the ground need quick and reliable insights to deliver successful operations in often challenging environments. Meet Pix4D React, the drone mapping software that provides rapid situational awareness in the field for quick decisions and collaboration. Developed with the help of emergency responders, Pix4D React was designed to be the optimal 2D fast mapping software for public safety and humanitarian aid professionals. Pix4D React is a force multiplier, enabling you to deliver critical insights when internet connection is unreliable and time is of the essence. It provides the key features to enable anyone to easily create, compare, document, and share maps. Get your 1-month free trial and access information to respond faster, protect, and save more lives with Pix4D React.
Okay, fantastic. So that was just a quick overview of what the software can do. The main benefit for me of this jumping software is how quick and easy it is to use. Something like mapping software can kind of scare off people that are maybe not used technology of that type before. Pix4D React, from what we've seen so far in the trials we've done, is incredibly easy to use. The fact that you can have a map within minutes to share with management or whoever's overseeing an operation is fantastic. And you can even use it straight away to make quick decisions in terms of where you search first, the state of maybe a building or a site that you're potentially going to be sending people into, and make risk assessments immediately. Because it desktop processes, there's no risk of delays in terms of it being sent out to a cloud to be processed. Doesn't matter if you're in an area where there's no Wi-Fi, no mobile signal, it can still be used without any issues. And also there's no data or security concerns, so there's no risk of that data being sent back to Pix4D. We're a Swiss company, so again, European based, there's no real safety concerns in terms of where you'll use this software. So the software as well is also extremely affordable. We'll go into some costs that we have exclusively for sort of search and rescue partners towards the end, but you're looking at £390 for a year's license or £990 for a full permanent license to use the software, which if anyone knows the cost of this kind of mapping software traditionally, it's a lot cheaper than you'd pay for something for sort of survey or inspection work. So what this means is that you can create maps in minutes, very quick data. 2D maps can be instantly exported with a report function, and it works with all the drones. So effectively, you've got no risk of anything going anywhere else. You can use it incredibly quickly in the field. And now, because of the accessibility, you can start to implement this with the equipment you've got, you know, almost instantly. There's no need to do any sort of extensive training or anything like that. It can be thrown straight into what you already do. So a quick look at what we do at COPTRZ in terms of support, and then we'll wrap things up. So we can do, as you've seen earlier, all the training, flight coaching, handover of equipment, the qualifications you might need, training in software, training in thermography. Any of that requirement we can cover. Alongside that, we can offer you a 24-month warranty on enterprise level products. So that's anything above the consumer level. So you're covered for the majority of the lifetime of the equipment in terms of any failures that might happen. We've also got a DJI approved repair center here in Leeds. We have a full warehouse with a workstation within it where our engineers can fix all DJI drones as an official repair center, and unofficially they can fix everything else as well. It's just that we have the certification from DJI to say that we can do that with their equipment. In terms of hot swapping and servicing, we have all these drones in stock. We have demo units which can be sent out if there's any issues and you have an operation which needs to be done. And we can also provide training vouchers and continued personal development courses, and that'll fall in the category of the Pix4D workshops, the thermography workshops, and the flight coaching as well. And all that can be included when you look to purchase a drone or a training package. So for getting started, all we've done on the Pix4D React is really simply knocked off a little bit of the cost. So you're saving about 20% on the yearly license and about the same on the perpetual, alongside the 1 month free trials that are available. So you can get up and running with these nice and quickly, give it a month free trial, see if it's worth it from there. You know, if the budget's there, purchase the perpetual. If not, again, try a year and see how it fits in with your operations. We're also doing a 10% equipment discount for search and rescue organizations within 2019. Officially, that is only search and rescue organizations that take on volunteers. However, if you're looking at training and software as well, we can always do something in terms of a package or a bundle for you to get equipment within whatever budget is given in terms of your funding. We'll also have the UK's largest drone demo day running on the 7th of November in Rugby. If anyone wants further information on that demo day, please let me know. I'll send you a link to sign up. We're going to have all the drones that you've seen within this presentation at that demo day, along with a hell of a lot more, including LiDAR systems for scanning. The Helios 2 is going to be put through its paces. We're going to have the Matrice 210 with the XT2 thermal camera, the COPTRZ Zoe military spec drone, as well as all the smaller units. So if you can attend that, I encourage you to come down. We've already got around 150 signups for that, so we're going to have to curtail it at around 200. It's fully free to attend. It's bound to be a great day. So I have run over slightly in terms of how long the presentation was meant to be there. So I'm going to give maybe just 5 minutes for questions, get through as many as I can. If I can't get through the questions, I'll pick them up afterwards and either give anyone who's asked them a call or an email just to follow up. So if you want to send in any questions to the chat here, I'll go through them and answer as many as I can within the next few minutes. Okay, so we've got a question here on comparing the Mavic and the Anafi thermal cameras. It's actually the exact same thermal core. So there's no difference in terms of the quality of those two thermal cameras. What I would say is that the Parrot's visual camera is higher quality, and both of those drones blend the two together. So if you're looking at that from a search and rescue or operational side, you're going to get a slightly higher quality image at the end of what you do. Not necessarily to say that the Anafi then is better than the Mavic, because the Mavic also has the ability to mount a searchlight and mount a speaker system as well. So if you can imagine, the benefits of having a searchlight and a speaker system for search and rescue are huge. So whether a better sensor would be better than having those accessories, we can discuss that and see whether it's which one of those two is going to be more beneficial. Okay, and a question around the IP ratings, and then another question around how much rain you can fly the Matrice 210 in. So to cover those, the IP55 rating, which was the one that the COPTRZ Zoe system has, that means basically jets of water from all angles to a certain pressure. So that can fly in pretty much anything. If you look at the Matrice 210's IP43 rating, that is jets of water from a certain angle above the drone, again at a certain pressure, which is slightly less. So real world, I'd say you can fly in what you'd class as light rain with no issues. We've flown it in what I'd class as heavy rain before, and it stayed in the air. We had to do it. It was an operational sort of discrepancy where we had to have the drone in the air. It worked absolutely fine. When we finished flying it, we had to bring it down and make sure we gave it a really good dry out and sort of clean out as well, and make sure there was no issues in terms of moisture working its way into the drone once it had been boxed up. So you do have to be careful with how you operate in rain with the Matrice 210. The best thing is that if you're flying in overcast weather and it starts to rain, you don't have to bring the drone down immediately. You can use it in sort of inclement conditions when you know it might rain without the risk being there. Is the Z30 IP rated? The Z30 isn't IP rated at all. The XT2 is IP rated. I believe it's the same as the drone or very similar to the drone. The Z30 isn't IP rated, but again, you can fly it in the same conditions you fly the drone in. The only thing you've got to watch for is getting moisture on the lens, because it will ruin the image. But being underneath the drone with the prop wash and the drone being IP rated, if you're flying in sort of light to medium rain, the camera will be fine. It won't be damaged. It's just you won't really be able to see sort of images that clearly, because you will have moisture on the lens in most cases. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap up here. There is a couple more questions. So what I'm going to do is go through. If you've asked the question, I will respond via email. You can see my details there on the slide. So that's my mobile number firstly there. So you can give that a call with any immediate questions. We've got the office number and then my email address below. So you'll get sent my contact details after the webinar, as well as a recording if you've signed up. Please do sign up to the demo day in Rugby on the 7th of November. And I'll send a link out for that for you to sign up as well. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you at the next one.